Hello everyone and welcome to this Q&A part of the San Francisco Indie Film Fest. Today I'll be talking to Christian and Daniel, director and screenwriter of It's Gonna Be Fine. If you're wondering why I have a a British accent, sorry, it's because I work for a company called Festival Formula, which are based in the UK, and every now and then we like to help out across the pond and offer our services there, so that's the reason for that. That's one of the very small silver linings of the whole COVID era. I wouldn't be able to talk to you guys today if it wasn't for the pandemic. It's Going to Be Fine. I really liked this tragic comedy. I felt that it's not a genre that I would watch often, and I didn't really know what to expect, but I think you did the genre and the style justice. It was in a weird way quite heartwarming, even though it's full of some depression along the way. Before watching it, I was thinking, how much is it supposed to make me laugh? Is it supposed to make me laugh constantly? Is it really meant to, take the mick out of these sad things? But I think you really hit a good sweet spot that's just in between. I didn't think he was mocking tragedy too much, but I didn't think he was also, trying to make the audience cry. So I really enjoyed it. It was a nice surprise. I think it's a very thin line to tread, but it's quite a nice one for you guys to walk me down. So I appreciate that. So I guess the first question has to be is why did you fall on this genre? Why do you like? I mean, obviously you might have your own opinions on the genre, but to me it is a tragic comedy, and I just wondered, what is it about that genre that makes you like mixing those two extreme emotions?
Daniel, would you like to start?
Yes, yes, thanks, I will. I think that's actually the most interesting point, because that's sort of the thing that we struggled with right from inception until the last day of editing, because and Christian has a very real impact on this, because we never set out to say we know exactly what kind of tonality it's going to be. We just knew when I came into this. I was told we have this story, but we want to do it as a comedy, which was jarring at first, but which was practically the reason why I thought this is amazing. I want to be part of this. And I have to admit, I myself am more out and out a comedy person. I think the script actually was more comedic. There was a side plot with a pathologist and stuff like that. So there was even more comedy routines in it. And I think Christian did did the hard thing of like balancing it out and trying to find out when it's going to be all right. And I was very relieved when we saw it with an audience that it actually worked like this, and I don't have the. And then again, people loved the script and always said this is amazing script. And I was like, yeah, but if you would have seen the script, it would have been a different experience. So the balancing act is very much Christian's, and you have to know your audience for that. And I'm more like the guy in the small room with his books, and Christian knows people and how they react. So this is. The last decision on this was his, and I think there's a lot of credit there.
How about you, Christian? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, thanks for these kind words, Daniel. But you know best that actually it was your script that we were able to make this film of. So, and I think we were very fortunate working with you. And it was a great teamwork also with the producer, Sebastian, who unfortunately can't make it tonight, but he sent his regards. And I mean, he brought us together, Sebastian, and was responsible for bringing Daniel into the project, because we started out with with drama at the beginning, and the story at that point was based on an article that we found in a magazine. Like a Swiss story that happened, and before that, but we were already working on the subject, but we didn't really know how to come across with it, because we couldn't really find the perspective of elderly people trying to setting their lives an end, and So we definitely needed to work the perspective of a character like Carsten, our main character at the end. And luckily we had this article, but really Daniel then made the script out of it, which is then also completely different from what we found in that newspaper like a few years back. And also like the dialogues and the pace. And for me, because you were asking the genre, like tragic comedy, I think I have a good taste of humor, maybe a bit too German, but you know, that's I'm German, so I can't really change myself.
I hope that.
That's the thing. But yeah, you know, we all love Wes Anderson and but also like all the films like Lubitsch, and in Germany I really admire the Andreas Dresen, a German director, you know, quite famous, but maybe not known in the US that much. And you know, he really brings comedy and tragic together. I mean, drama together, and that's what I really like. And maybe I'm more also like a drama person because I you know, started from there. And yeah, we were always a bit arguing about it, but Daniel really like gave me the room and space to make it my way, or you know.
That's really interesting to hear. So it sort of sounds like the yin and yang almost. You sort of come together, your background and Daniel's background, and then that's how you get this. So it's interesting you mentioned the article because I do have a follow-up question that was my answer. The article might be part of the answer. The Undertaker is obviously a very unique setting. So I just wondered, did you start with that? Did you think, oh, wouldn't it, or did that come later, or how did that come?
That came later. I think that came through Daniel. I think you brought it in.
I think so, yeah.
And also the music background of the father, etc. So the Undertaker, I think, you know, when I was reading a critique from a German newspaper, and they said, well, in the Undertaker genre, and I didn't know that there is an Undertaker genre, but you know, so like there's hundreds of Undertaker films. The article started kind of that. But you know, as far as this genre exists, then the writer agreed that we did a fairly good job. So, but yeah, Daniel started out with bringing this into it. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that. I think it's quite a unique. Yeah, so it's a unique setting, and I also like how the contrast of when everything else is falling apart, the actual Undertaker's where he works is sort of going on like through a makeover, which is quite funny in itself. Yes, so the performances as well, which I think obviously play a massive role. I think Carsten has such a huge task in the fact that he is the sole constant, like the main character, as it were. And I just wondered, do you think that it's quite a unique skill? This might be one more for you, Christian, but do you think it's a unique skill to be able to tread that line in between the two genres as an actor, or do you think ultimately they're doing what they're told and it's down to the writing to make it funny? Or
no, well, I would never tell them, you know, like doing something funny. I mean, Fabian Hinrichs, the actor who plays Carsten, I mean, he is a very clever, smart guy, and you know, he's very sharp in his critique, and he writes also stage plays himself.
I see.
So you know, he really got the story, and he fell in love with the story. And because it was a low-budget film, and usually he's not doing that often, but I think he fell in love with the script and with this character that he was supposed to play, and so he found his way around it. But I think he's also playing himself a bit, you know, which
okay, that's right.
I'm kind of convinced that you can't really like perform any character you would like, you know, or to imitate that person or whatever it is. You know, there has to be something from the own personality in this character, and I think that really fits him well. You know,
I think I was so impressed and relieved when we got him as the lead, because I'm pretty sure that this kind of script, or the kind of project that really dies or lives with your main, because when I was writing it, I was really thinking of people like, I don't know, Buster Keaton, or all these. I had all these like physical set pieces of him, like stumbling over the
The
garbage
bins,
bin.
for example, is that?
And it's really tough, especially in Germany, to find an actor who they're either comedic actors who are buffoons, who can
Right.
they can garbage bins and fall into the garbage bins, but you won't believe anything else they will
Yes,
do.
I see,
Or
I see.
they're really dramatic actors, and they will not get anywhere near garbage bins. And he is like the one person, as you said, who is exactly in the middle and who can actually do both things and have this dignity about it. And this is great because people with dignity are so much more funny, and it's it's perfect.
I'm glad you say that, because when I was noting the question down, I wasn't sure whether it was a a silly question or one that was going to have a very quick answer. But yeah, I think the way you sum it up there is true. I think you do need to have the fine balance, especially with the style of the film. So going back to sort of that line that we spoke about, and I think what's interesting to me is how easy do you find, or how difficult maybe is it to not go too far to one side? So how do you make sure that one scene isn't too hilarious and then the next scene isn't completely miserable? I mean, there might not be an answer to that, but I guess it's just something that I was interested in. Is that a skill that you think you need to have?
As a writer or the director? I mean, both,
I would say as the director, I guess primarily. I suppose it could be asked to the writer, but I suppose to the director, yes. How do you make sure, when you have the two genres, how do you make sure you're keeping a centralized feeling throughout the film?
Well, to start with, I think it's all based on the script again, because if Daniel, for example, wouldn't have written a scene between between the couple, like his parents, Carsten's parents, in the Undertaker basement there, where they really like stayed out, that they really love each other dearly. I mean, how I wouldn't be able to stage or
For sure, I see what you mean.
Scene like that. So, and I think I was fortunate that he also brought that into it. Like he had this really warm-hearted scenes, and they were not too sensitive, So I see. I think you have to trust your instincts then, and go with that. And also, like technically, I think you can. If you really think you hit the point of the scene, how you imagined it, then you might do it a bit faster again, or a bit, less filled with very much emotion. You try to go a bit back again, like after the rain came down, you maybe start with a more neutral day, and maybe then you take bits from there and bits from here, and you try to mix the shots even in the scene, so that you have kind of a material for it. But luckily the producer isn't here. We hadn't that much time. See, the budget was like okay, but I was happy doing the film, but still we hadn't much time really to really think of doing the scene in many ways. I would have loved to, but basically like 4 or 5 takes, and then we had to move on again. But
yeah, so I suppose it's a bit like the spectrum, and you sort of do a few over here and then a few over there, and then you try and find a happy medium, I guess.
Yeah.
And how about you, Daniel, as the writer, when you're writing, do you have to make sure that you're not going too funny or too sad, or does it just works?
I think the main thing was that at the beginning we started out really communicating about the characters and how we wanted to get justice for all of them. Because when you wrote the original article, for example, the mother in the original article was not really a person her decision was not really one that I could advocate for. I thought it was weird, and it was I didn't. I didn't want to subscribe to that, and so we had lots of discussions about how can we make all of these people likable, because there's no villain in the story. There's no one who does anything cruel to anyone else. So that, I think, was the main point, where, as Christian said, that we didn't do any scenes that would actually do harm to someone, or that we would make fun of somebody. The main question of how do you balance it out, I actually think I'm a crass person. I'm actually not sure. I was I was very happy to have like the safety net, which of course is Christian's and the editors' responsibility.
Sure.
Would sort of get overboard, and they would later correct it and find the kind of balance that they would do. I would have gone more into extreme parts, but I think in the end, you do it on instinct, and you do the stuff that you yourself would want to watch, and having like the understanding of the audience, as I said, is a really tricky thing. And this was one of the projects where I'm still not sure that I actually have that.
Learning for sure. Yeah. No, that's interesting that you say that, because I think that for me, like I said, it was quite refreshing, because I think the way that you deal with, it's Parkinson's, divorce, cancer. There's some really quite glum themes and things in the film, but the way that you centralize the film around it actually makes you made me personally think about the way I think about those things. It doesn't have to be taboo. It's not like, oh, let's never talk about death. It's actually quite nice to have that setting of it happens, and let's try and smile in the face of it. And I think there's a line where I think it's his wife's lawyer says, stop saying no to death and say yes to life, I think is the line. And that's one that really resonated with me. And I was like, oh yeah, that's really, really nicely put. So I really like that. Yeah. You keep mentioning, you've mentioned a couple of times the article. So I'm just curious, what is this article?
I'm not quite sure where it was. I think it was like something like 5 to 8 pages, like a big reporting thing about a guy in Switzerland who it was from his perspective on his parents wanted to commit suicide, and they were living in the same town, so it was very different. They had grandchildren, which was something that we would give a weird color to that, so we omitted that. So there were. It was basically the thing that we took from it was just the main question of just, let's imagine your parents confronted you with their wish to commit suicide, and how's that? It wasn't a comedic article at all.
Sure, no, I understand. So essentially, it was an article about a guy who found himself in the strange position of his parents wanted to euthanize themselves, and so his dad did have a serious illness, and his mum just wanted to follow do it because
I think so, right?
Yeah, I mean, actually, it was the journalist who was allowed to get a closer look into the family, and then it was told from his perspective, observing the situations that happened over a year or more. And the son was a part of it as well, but he didn't write the article. And anyhow, yeah, it just gave us the let's say, like an impulse. How could we actually start it by looking at Carsten as the son, and then from there we walked our own way. And
nice. I think it's always interesting. I think when I do these Q&A, I think one of the first questions I ask is, how did you come up with the idea? And some filmmakers just say, I just sat down and that's what came out. So it's interesting that it has you have a physical sort of article, as it were. So more to do with the physicalities of the film. When is the production date of the film? Was it last year or was it the year before?
No, the shooting took place in 2019, from March till beginning of April, I think. By by then the snow was almost gone. Like it was actually springtime with lots of birds and the sound and everywhere. But yeah, I mean, Christmas is not represented that much in the film, but maybe, you know, it doesn't play that big role in it really. But so when
No,
we had
yeah.
around 20 shooting days in Baden-Württemberg in the southwest of Germany near Stuttgart, where the production company is based, and yeah.
Oh, nice. I think that yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned the Christmas thing because it doesn't play a huge role, but I do like how it ends with the fireworks and how when he locks them in the cellar room or wherever it is, how you know the time scale because he says we can watch the fireworks and he points to the tiny window. So was this your debut feature or not? Your first feature film?
Yeah, so to say, yeah, the first 90-minute movie. Before that, I did a couple of shorts and a documentary and 2 middle-length films. So we call it like middle-length film,
Okay.
like halfway, and a genre that
Yeah.
a length that doesn't.
So I guess
yeah.
I guess the question has to be then, how did you find it? You know, was it? All filmmakers that I speak to one day want to make a feature film. So I assume you had that same dream. Was it what you expected? Was it you know?
Well, I was hoping the film that I did before, which lasted like for 64 minutes. I'm not counting,
Okay.
but you know, you see, I was really desperate then, like really doing a long feature film because sometimes on international festivals they don't care if it's like a 60-minute or 90-minute or 75-minute movie, and you still can send it to the long feature competitions or somewhere.
Mm.
But if you are like, so to say, speaking in Germany and want to and you know, you're looking for maybe also commissioned work in TV, and then they always like, well, by the way, do you have your first feature done? And yeah, well, you know, I did one in Istanbul, and it's like 60 minutes. Yeah, well, I'm not sure if you can like go with 90 then. And so it's completely bizarre, but that's you know, they always have like an argument on it. Anyhow, I'm pretty happy that I did it, of course, and maybe it will help some way or the other to really do the next project.
That's good to hear. I mean, I suppose 64 minutes isn't too different. I think usually when I ask short filmmakers, is it what you expected? They have a whole load of, you know, but it seems that you're pretty experienced yourself, Christian. How about yourself, Daniel? Is this your first feature that you've seen?
No, I did some crime films in Germany, like TV stuff. So
Okay.
yeah, but no, it's not my first. But yeah, about Christian, I would imagine actually that your 65-minute film must have been more complex because it has like international cast and women in Istanbul and in Germany, and so it's might probably have been easier to do the 90 minutes in Baden-Württemberg logistically.
Well, ask the producers. I don't know. No, there's an interesting story to that movie because when Daniel came on board for the film, and then it came out that he actually wrote a review to the film that I have done before, because he used to work or still working as a film critique, and I was lucky. The review was quite all right, I think.
Yes.
So we found out. Yeah, just a little story to that.
Funny. And I also have to ask, obviously, with the film showing at San Francisco Indie Film Fest, I assume you were lucky enough to screen in a cinema or not?
Sorry, can you repeat that? I didn't get the.
Sorry, I was just asking. I have to ask because obviously the pandemic. I'm not sure where you sort of stepped onto the festival circuit, but I'm assuming that if my timing is correct, that you have been lucky enough to screen in a cinema or not.
Yes, a few times. I mean, the premiere took place in Germany at the newcomer festival, so-called Max Ophüls Festival.
Nice. Yes.
And you know, at that time the pandemic was not broken out, you know, and we had full cinemas, and that was a really good experience. But soon after, right after the Berlinale, everything was closed, shut down till summer, and then yeah, you know the story.
Well, I mean, I'm glad that you got that one in. I think that I asked a few filmmakers, and I have to be very careful. I had a feature film yesterday that released in right on the pandemic, so they've only had virtual screenings, you know, so they can that feeling of, for a filmmaker, of watching your film with an audience is, you know, some argue the sole reason that you do it. So I'm glad that you got that. I also, that brings me on to the following point. What have you felt about the sort of response to the festival's online natures? Is that something that you've embraced? I appreciate it's obviously very different. Is that something that you're excited about, or is it a bit you just want to get back to normal, I guess?
Daniel, I don't know.
I'm not much of a festival person, actually.
Okay.
I'm fine in my little room.
I like the honesty. Yeah, I guess the question.
We had both experiences, which I thought was actually nice. We had the experience of screening in front of an audience with the cast and with everybody, and answering questions directly, which was very nice. And we also, I think, the second festival it was on was then going virtual, and which was also nice in a way, because you could sort of buy your way in. You didn't have to travel somewhere, but most of my friends actually saw it there first, and you could from it was a small town somewhere in northern Germany, but they put it online, and lots of people sort of screen the film and be part of the festival, even if they couldn't make it to the actual location. So I thought I have no problem with that, actually, but yeah.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I think that is one of the benefits, like you say, is people being able to attend Q&As that never usually they might not have been able to go halfway around the globe or meet people. So yeah, that's one of the benefits. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a bit of a weird question, but it definitely makes sense to ask. You know, we can't not talk about the pandemic, unfortunately. Which brings me on to the next question I have. I have two last questions, actually, because I think we're doing okay for time. So this next question, people usually say, "Oh, you're putting me on the spot," and I hope I don't put you on the spot, guys. But it's just quite a simple question. Do you have any advice that you've accrued through your career or through filming this film that you would give to young aspiring writers, directors, as such? I've put you on the spot, haven't I?
Well, yeah, you did.
The reason I ask, and it's just because usually if I'm watching these interviews or sort of podcasts and stuff like that, I always find it very interesting when people ask those questions, because I love hearing more about the film, the stories, the reasoning. But I also think it's great if you can just sometimes offer a little bit of advice or something like that, a little bit of something that you learned along the way, or something that you would say, definitely do this, definitely don't do this.
Well, I can buy you some time, Christian. I also teach at a film school in Cologne, and I have like sort of young aspiring writers and working with them all the time, which is amazing. There are two answers to this, I think. One of them is very individual, so everybody has to learn something completely different. When I was in film school, I had the feeling that everybody was much more talented than me. They would come up with stories, that I would give my right arm for this kind of stories. It was amazing. And then I found out, oh wait, but they sit in front of the blank page for 5 days, and I have no problem writing stuff down. So tell me the best stories, and I go like, yeah, just write exactly that, and they can't, and I can write down whatever. So people have different problems. People have to learn different things. So I don't think there's a categorical answer. The second answer, I think, is sort of the Bo Burnham, the answer that Bo Burnham always gives, to say, don't try it. Just we are sort of like privileged white rich guys, and I don't think I've really sort of deserved being here or did anything special that I could pass on. I sort of
I see what you mean. That's very it's very modest and humble of you, but I do really like your first point to sort of appreciate your individuality. And
yes,
yeah,
and if it doesn't work out, I'm sorry. It's not your fault. It's
Sure.
literally your fault.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I like that. Everything is slightly chaotic at the moment, so that's a good way to look at it.
Maybe there's not much to add to that, but maybe to the festival question, because I would really like to address a big thanks to Jeff Ross, who invited us, and making that interview also happening, and which I really appreciate. And as Daniel already stated, I think it's very important that like every single viewer is important that, talking about indie movie, I mean, okay, that film was made with German TV money as well, and so also screened on German TV in the middle of the night, and some people saw it maybe or maybe not, but here, you have a different, I have a different connection, and I'm really happy, and I was lucky that a few years back, I spent a few days in San Francisco, and so I can imagine the place, and maybe also I think I visited the cinema there, where usually the film gets screened live. And anyhow, so I'm just happy that the film finds an audience in the US, and we had a US premiere also online, I think in Rhode Island, Flickr Festival.
Yes, there. Flickers, I think it was.
And that was really nice as well to know, but I think, the physical experience in the cinema is necessary for the audience, and also for the filmmaker to learn how it works. And every screening is different, and it really gets physical. I mean, for me, sometimes it's really hard to hold that. I mean, some directors go out and really can't like watch the film again, but I really like staying in there and really trying to understand how the energy flows through the room, right? And to know what we made right and maybe wrong, or maybe it's the right or wrong time at the day, where the film is screened. I don't know, but it's always really interesting to see the reactions. And considering the second question, I don't know. I think we are really lucky doing this. And if you get the shot, if you really get the chance, then you be ready to fight and not to doubt too much on what you really want to tell. Because there's always lots of people having an opinion. Like, I'm not talking about the creative core, like with Daniel or Sebastian, and maybe with Burkhard, who was the commissioning editor on the film. But I think in terms of talking about comedy, I mean, I remember a session we had, and then we were showing each other some samples of movies that we really like or that we consider to be funny. And I thought, well, really? And see, and then, even getting the core team being on the same page, right, is so difficult. And then from the director's standpoint, of course, you have to make your own decisions, and you have to go through it, and with all the doubts maybe that come up, and you will have huge crisis through shooting days. But you can't try it, as Daniel said. Then you have to give everything. That's all. There's no like maybe or a bit or something. You just have to take that chance you get and make it happen. Whatever comes out, and maybe this will be a failure, maybe it will be success, or maybe it will be quite okay movie, maybe a kind of okay movie, and let's see.
Well, I think that you put it brilliantly, and I think that the fact that you had a little bit of time to think about that answer, I'm grateful for, because I think you both actually smashed it out of the park. So yeah, and I will make sure that I pass that on to Jeff, and he'll watch this. And Flickers and both San Fran India are great film festivals, so you should be over the moon with that, and hopefully you have a few more to come. I don't know, but hopefully you do. The last question, just to round it off, is what's next for you? I appreciate what's going on in the world, might just be kicking back and relaxing or some personal development, but it makes sense to ask. Are you planning on working together again, or are you planning on going more into TV?
Well, as a writer in Germany, you sort of basically live from doing stuff for TV or Netflix now. So that's and every couple of years something like special comes along that you really believe in. I would love to work with Christian again if we find a story that we both love, and it's not there yet, but it will.
Well, hopefully, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, same for me. I mean, would love to work with Daniel again. As he said, I mean, he's very like a busy writer. He has always something to write. As he said, you can just start from the moment. So even if, and yeah, I mean, for me, also I do some commission work for German TV, like crime stories.
Oh, cool.
Honestly, you live off that. That's for sure. But we're also preparing like an official cinema debut movie. I remember that I gave the script a year ago to Daniel, and he was really doubting that the story would work out. But I'm sure we worked on it. We did a great, like, big effort to improve the script, and yeah, we got some financing. And if we're lucky, we can shoot by the end of the year or maybe start of next year. So I'm really looking forward to that, and what else coming in my way.
Wow, I mean, that sounds great, and fingers crossed that you can get into that. It's interesting that you mention TV. Being from the UK, I don't watch a lot of German TV, as I'm sure you can imagine. I have actually had to watch a few German films for these question and answers, so I've really been getting into the German stuff. I did also watch, and I'm just curious. This is quite separate. I watched on Netflix recently How to Sell Drugs Online Fast, and I just wondered, have you heard of that? Is because I thought that was brilliant, and I just was curious as to German creators if is it big in Germany? I assume it is.
I'm not sure if it's big in Germany. It's sort of my peers know it.
Okay.
And well, let's not mince words. German television is very often very boring because German television is watched by very old people. I'm sorry, but like, the average your age is 60, so you really do at half speed, and you do stuff like really, and if you do something interesting, as Christian said, like this movie, you do it late at night where nobody's bothered in a way.
Yeah, so, yeah, the old people are asleep.
And I'm preparing a Netflix series too that we have a pitch for, and we watched how to get drugs online fast, how to sell drugs online fast. Sorry, and I think it's a very interesting show. I think there's still a lot of Germanness in it, which I like, but okay, especially from direction and speed, and it's sort of groundbreaking, or it's something that we looked at and thought, okay, so we can actually, with our pitch, we can go out there, we can like do stuff on computer,
yeah, that's cool.
Do stuff, because in German TV, if you say, I mean, we try to do a series about esports, which is something. There's no German TV that will touch this in any way. You cannot put a German computer on German TV because people say, well, then and that's not cinematic, and computer is weird, and I don't know how to use it anyway, so stuff like that. And seeing how to sell drugs online like integrates computer imagery into the direction is, I think, inspiring. So yeah, this and Dark, and I think there were a few German Netflix series that I think will actually do something to the whole market.
Yeah, it's interesting. Dark is on my list, and I think that the reason I ask is just because How to Sell Drugs Online Fast, it did seem to really me and my friends really enjoyed it, and obviously it was German. So I was just curious to ask. It's really interesting that you say that you felt that it was quite groundbreaking, and yeah, some of the stuff they do in that is really cool, really fun, really interesting to watch. But I just thought I'd ask because that is pretty much the only other sort of German thing, more mainstream thing that I've watched. Anyway, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I want to thank everyone at home that's watched the Q&A and that's obviously watched the film. I hope you have a great rest of the festival. And Christian and Daniel, I wish you all the best for the rest of the year, and fingers crossed you can start working on that later in the year.
Thank you. Thank you for the interview.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Take care, guys.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Good night. Or good day.